Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the CFR training webinar for 2023 calendar year consolidated fiscal report. We have a decent-sized crowd today with over 850 attendees. So hopefully we don't have any issues with the WebEx. Both of the webinar sessions will be recorded and posted on YouTube. So if you have a colleague that could not make it or you want to listen to training again, you will be able to. We will send an email out to all providers notifying them of when they are available and where they can be found. My name is Alpa Amin, a representative from OPWDD, and I will be the host for the two webinars we have scheduled this week. Today's NY State representative will be as follows. Representing OSS, Paul Green, Paul Sutton, Lisa Vickery. Representing OMH, Michelle Selinsky, Josh Becker, and Hoffman. Representing OPWDD, Francis Vasillo, Kenneth Glinmeyer, myself, and Emily Schubert. Representing SED, Catherine Cochran, Mackenzie Bisler. Representing DOH, Jeffrey Nicholson, Nicole Miliusi. Also, we have a survey that will pop up at the end of the event. We would greatly appreciate you taking the time to fill out the survey so that we can continue to make these trainings better each time. Session 1 will cover getting started, CFRS web, core reporting schedule CFR 1 through DMH 1. This slide is important and hopefully you have had the opportunity to check out previous Q&As that have been posted on the OMH website listed on the screen. We strongly encourage all attendees to ask questions through the Q&A function in the webinar. It is on your right-hand side of your screen, and you might have to click the arrow next to the Q&A to open up the dialog box. If you don't see it, click the three dots at the bottom right of the WebEx and then click Q&A. We will not be answering questions today, but plan on answering all the questions and posting answer online along with a recording of this webinar so that everyone can get the benefit of this webinar and the questions asked. This is always good to know. When you have a question, this slide shows how to contact each agency. Most of us are still working hybrid schedules, so all the agencies prefer email contact. New York State Office of Children and Family Service Providers may submit questions regarding their CFR submission to the OMH CFR unit. New York State Department of Health providers may submit questions regarding their CFR submission by email to the DOH email address listed on the side. Any questions related to claims can go to the contact listed on this slide. As noted on the previous slide, email would be the preferred method. By end of this seminar, we hope to accomplish the following goals. Introduce providers to the CFR manual and CFRS web, provide NYS agency contact information for specific questions not covered during this training session, help providers become familiar with the CFR core reports, discuss important policies, principles, and rules regarding completion of the CFR. I will now pass on the presenting to our first panelist.
Thank you, Alpa. My name is Paul Sutton. I'm representing the OASIS, and I'll be talking about getting started. The CFR manual contains 9 general overview sections, with a section for each of the core, claiming, and supplemental schedules. You should read and review these sections before beginning to work on the CFR. There are numerous appendices containing detailed information which are also available. And you can check these out at the website listed below at the link on the SED website. And here is a picture of that. The manuals, appendices, transmittal letters, and extension requests can be found here. The current manuals are available here as well as several prior manuals as well. And they are all available for download via PDF format. The CFR is used as a year-end cost report that documents service provider expenses and revenues on one consolidated report and is shared by the 6 New York State agencies. This cost report information is used for rate and fee setting, cost of living increases, and fiscal analysis. The cost reports are also referred as the CFR core schedules and consist of the CFR 1 through CFR 6 and the DMH-1. The CFR is also used as the year-end state aid claiming document, which is the basis of payment of your final claim. And the state aid claiming schedules are the DMH-2 and 3. Full accrual accounting must be used when reporting fiscal information on schedules CFR 1 through 6 and the DMH-1. The DMH-2 and 3 schedules may be completed on accrual, modified accrual, or cash basis. Those of you that file a mini abbreviated CFR may complete all of your required schedules on accrual, modified accrual, or cash basis of accounting. The goal of accrual accounting is to account in the periods in which they occur, the effects of transactions and other events and circumstances on an entity to the extent that those effects are recognizable and measurable. This means that revenue is recognized and recorded when earned, and expenses are recognized and recorded as they are incurred. Units of service are counted when provided, and your salary expenses are reported in the period incurred. Note that your CFR may not match your quarterly payroll reports. There are 4 types of CFR submissions: full, abbreviated, Article 28 abbreviated, and mini abbreviated. The type of CFR a service provider must complete depends on the type of programs operated and the amount and type of funding received from the CFR state agencies. You should review the submission matrices in Section 2 of the manual to determine the proper type of CFR submission required. When a service provider is funded by more than one agency, the most stringent reporting requirements apply for all required filings. This means that if you have programs with OASIS and OPWDD, and OASIS only requires an abbreviated CFR, but OPWDD would require a full CFR, you would then be required to submit a full CFR. This is a screenshot of the matrices that were just mentioned, and Section 2 of the manual contains 5 matrices for determining the correct CFR submission type for your agency. You should select the applicable matrix and answer a series of yes or no questions to determine the correct submission type to prepare. For purposes of determining submission requirements, Medicaid managed care is considered to be Medicaid. Section 2 in the manual also contains notes relating to New York State agency specific reporting requirements and exceptions. These matrices change often and should be reviewed yearly for any adjustments. CFR reporting periods are generally based on the geographic location of a service provider's corporate headquarters. This training covers the January 1st to December 31st, 2023 calendar year reporting period. All programs operating during this time should be reported on the CFR. If your agency has a contract for one or more programs funded in a period different than your agency's standard CFR reporting period, an additional mini abbreviated CFR may be required for the non-standard filing period. The additional CFR will use the reporting period specified by the contract as per your New York State codes and rules. The most common off-cycle contracts are for special legislative grants. For example, a service provider that has its corporate headquarters in Manhattan and operates programs in both Manhattan and Westchester County must submit their primary CFR on the standard reporting period of July 1st through June 30th. This provider would complete the CFR detailing expenses and revenues for all programs in operation during that time period, including the Westchester County programs. Further, they must also submit a secondary mini-abbreviated CFR on the January 1st through December 31st reporting period for the programs funded by Westchester County only. Additional reporting requirements and information may be found on pages 3.1 and 3.2 of the CFR manual. Due dates for filing are as follows. For your January and December filers, for OMH and SED CFRs, the due date will be May 1st with a 30-day extension request due on or before that time. For OASIS, OPWDD, DOH, and OCFS filers, the due date for your CFR is June 1st with no 30-day extensions given. The link to a 30-day extension request form can be found at the address below at the SED website, where the manual is also available for download. To ensure compliance in submitting accurate CFRs and the required supporting documents, each New York State agency can impose sanctions or penalties on the provider. The imposition of sanctions or penalties may include, but is not limited to, withholding of advance payments, suspension of your operating certificate, or notification of non-compliance to DOH for Medicaid providers. As each separate agency has their own penalties for late submission, they will not be discussed in detail here, but will be discussed further in each agency's specific section. If your agency is funded through an LGU contract, check with the county or New York City for their specific requirements regarding CFR and the final claim submissions. The LGU may require a submission due date earlier than New York State agency due date. Agency requirements, CFR requirements, are the minimal requirements regarding CFR submissions, and LGU requirements can be stricter but can never be more lenient. And lastly, sending copies of the certification schedules to the county or your local DDRO does not fulfill your requirement with the state agencies. CFRs are prepared and submitted using the CFRS web. The link is posted to the web is posted on the OMH website at this address. In addition to the submission of the CFR, the certification pages, agency financial statements, and parent agency allocation should be submitted through CFRS web. Additional instructions on uploading certification pages through the CFRS web will be discussed later in this presentation. Please do not mail paper copies of the CFR core schedules to the CFR1 to DMH1 to the New York State Agency CFR units in Albany. We're mostly paperless now, and it causes more work and extra cost of postage for you. CFRS Web is a preferred method of submitting certifications. In addition, OASIS, OMH, OPWDD, and SED will continue to accept emailed PDF copies of all required certifications. OMH, OPWDD, and SED will also accept paper copies of the applicable certification schedules. And lastly, DOH and OCFS will only accept certifications that are electronically uploaded through CFRS Web. When a revised CFR is submitted, a provider is required to upload revised certifications complete with a new DCN number as follows. For OASIS, a new CFR I, II, III, and IV are required. Note that subsequent to a CFR II being received, OASIS will accept an attestation reporting minor changes in lieu of additional CFR II. SED and OPWDD, a new CFR I and II is required. For OMH, DOH, and OCFS, only a new CFR I is required. Note that for OPWDD, a new certified CFR I and CFR II, if required with the original CFR submission, is required. Only CPA certified CFRs will be utilized for calculation of OPWDD reimbursement levels or any other initiative that utilizes a CFR for calculation of funding or reimbursement. Providers may submit revised CFRs and/or certification schedules in CFRS Web and have not been certified in compliance with other agencies' requirements. However, OPWDD's CFR unit will not accept them without certification. For those of you that are emailing copies of your certifications, the proper naming convention for these files is as follows. For OASIS and OPWDD, you should name them as listed below, and note that OMH and SED have no specific file name format required. Consolidated financial statements, including all affiliates, must be submitted electronically as PDF files through CFRS Web. In addition, financial statements reflecting information on the provider as a standalone entity should be uploaded if available. And providers that are required to have a single audit based on the uniform guidance in the compliance supplement must upload a copy of the audit report to the funding agency via CFRS Web. More information on the financial audit requirements can be found at the link below. Your financial statements should only be uploaded one time for a fiscal reporting period, unless there are changes. Please do not upload draft financial statements. We're just going to ask you for the final version anyway, before we can do our reviews. Financial statements are not required for many abbreviated CFR filers. And lastly, OPWDD will not accept paper copies of financial statements. Prior period financials can also be uploaded through the CFRS Web. It is preferred that CPA audited financial statements correspond to the CFR reporting period. However, if your agency's corporate fiscal year is different than the CFR reporting period, submit the financial statements with an end date that falls within the CFR reporting period. It is recommended that the audited and certified financial statements include the prior year's data in the presentations of the balance sheet and income statement for comparison purposes. Tips on record keeping. Program payroll and fringe benefits should be reconciled to the general ledger on a monthly or quarterly basis. Salary allocations between different programs and/or job functions should be carefully monitored. Expenses and revenues should be monitored on a regular basis and compared against approved budgets. Internal financial reporting systems should be structured to capture the cost categories included in the CFR. Non-allowable costs should be tracked on a regular basis for easy identification when preparing the CFR. Program descriptions and units of service descriptions can be found in appendices E, F, G, H, HH, and II. And a list of some, but not all, non-allowable costs can be found in Appendix X. Non-allowable costs. A cost must be reasonable and/or necessary for providing services in both its nature and amount. In determining the reasonableness of a given cost, consideration will be given to whether the costs incurred in rendering the services are generally recognized as ordinary and necessary for the operation of the organization and the restraints or requirements imposed by federal and state laws. Providers operating DMH programs should refer to Appendix X of the manual for a list of some but not all non-allowable costs. All non-allowable costs included as an expense must also be reported in the adjustments or non-allowable cost line of the applicable schedules. The following are some examples of non-allowable costs that must be adjusted out of the reported costs. Costs that are not properly related to patient care and principally afford diversion, amusement, or entertainment to owners, operators, or employees. Costs related to the purchase of alcoholic beverages. Costs resulting from violations of or failure to comply with federal and state laws. Costs of training afforded to staff that does not directly relate to the fulfillment of the required duties. And also note that expenses which are acceptable per GAAP may or may not be reimbursable. Related party transactions. The allowable cost of a related party transaction is the lower of the related organization's actual cost or the fair market value of providing the goods or services supplied. All related party transactions must be disclosed and detailed on the CFR 5 schedule. All excess transaction costs included as an expense on any line of the CFR must be reported on the adjustment line of the applicable schedule. Fringe benefit expenses that are not reasonable and available to all employees are non-allowable and must be adjusted out of the reported costs on the applicable schedule. Non-allowable fringe benefits include supplemental executive retirement plans or any non-qualified deferred compensation plans, subject to IRC subsection 457. CFRS Web is a common platform for the providers of the 6 agencies that are required to submit CFRs. All New York State agencies and their programs are to be reported on one consolidated CFR. This means if you have programs with OASIS and OMH, please do not submit a separate CFR for OASIS and a separate one for OMH. You submit one CFR with reporting all agencies. Only program codes and funding source codes valid for the CFR reporting period can be used. CFRS Web must be used for all new submissions beginning with the fiscal year 21-22 and any revisions to prior period CFRs. All previous submissions retroactive to 2012 are available to view and edit in CFRS Web. Signature pages will continue to be uploaded through the web. For guidance in navigating the web, CFRS Web, or for assistance with data input, contact your CFR unit that your agency has programs with. For technical guidance, such as if the web application is not responding or requires additional technical assistance, contact the ITS help desk at the link below. If after reviewing the CFRS Web help files, you require additional assistance in accessing and navigating the web, we recommend you contact your state agency representative first prior to contacting the ITS help desk. To receive notification about updates or changes to the CFRS Web, add your information to the web announcement list as shown below, which can be accessed from the OMH website at this link. It is recommended that more than one staff member subscribe in order to stay informed of any changes. In addition, announcements will also be posted on the announcement board. Security Manager. User access to CFRS Web must be authorized by the provider's Security Manager. The Security Manager at the provider agency assigns a CFRS Web role to fiscal staff involved in reviewing, preparing, or submitting CFRs and CBRs. The assigned user role can be viewed by clicking on the username at the upper right of your screen. A different set of permissions is associated with each role. If a different level of access is needed, the user should contact the Security Manager at your agency. And providers are encouraged to establish more than one Security Manager if so desired. This means if your current Security Manager ends up leaving your organization for any reason, you still have somebody who has access to be able to, make any necessary changes to user roles. There are 3 possible user roles while working in the CFRS Web. A reviewer reviews all documents, including those not yet submitted to state agencies. The user does not have the ability to create and complete new documents, revise previously created documents, or submission document permission. The reviewer has read-only access. The preparer creates and completes new documents. They can also review and revise all documents within the application, including those not yet submitted. The preparer cannot submit the completed CFR. A submitter creates and completes new documents. They review and revise all documents within the application, including those not yet submitted, and they may submit CFRs and CBRs and all supporting documents. User roles are graduating in ability to perform functions. So the reviewer can only look at documents, the preparer can prepare, and the submitter can do all 3. Providers can have the same role assigned to multiple users. For example, having multiple users designated as a submitter may be useful in meeting filing deadlines. Instructions for a user, such as a CPA, fiscal person, to retain the same user ID for multiple providers. If the user being created is a CPA or fiscal user, then ask the user if there is an existing user ID with a different agency. If there is already an existing user ID, send an email request to your state agency's CFR unit requesting they add this user to your agency by providing the following information: the name of the user, their ID for their primary agency, your agency code, and the role that you wish your CPA to have. Once the above noted information is provided to your state agency CFR unit, the request will be processed and the results relayed directly back to you. And this ends my section of the presentation. I will pass this off to the next presenter.
Good morning. My name is Francis Vasilio. I'm in the CFR unit at OPWDD. As mentioned by Paul previously, when you log into the CFRS web, the first thing you'll see at the top of the page is the announcement board. You'll see information posted there. For instance, you don't have to call us to ask whether the program has been modified to allow you to prepare a calendar 23 CFR. You instead can just look on the announcement board and it'll tell you when the program's ready for that. Underneath the announcement board are 4 quadrants. Creating a new submission, reviewing or revising a submission, continuing a submission, and uploading information, and a helpful links section. We're going to go through each of these 4 quadrants of the CFRS web. if you're going to create a new submission and you have a role that allows you to, either a submitter or prepare a role, then the Create New Submission button here will be gold. If you only have a reviewer role, it'll be grayed out. If you choose to create a new submission, you will first check the submission type with the little drop-down arrow. You'll either choose full abbreviated or mini abbreviated. Then you'll mark the state agencies that are going to be on the CFR. This is an important step. If you leave out one and you try to bring forward information from a previous CFR, you'll get an error message. I'll show you that in a minute. The next step is you'll mark what the reporting cycle and the reporting period. And then it asks you, would you like to carry forward data from a previous submission? If you choose not to, if you answer no, then it'll take you to the provider agency definition screen, and you can go through and enter all the information from scratch. Most of you will say yes, in which case you'll be asked information about where you want to carry the information from. So you got the submission type, it's already marked full, the state agencies are marked, the calendar 22, in your case it'll be calendar 23 when you get in there. You say yes, and you get a list of previous CFR reporting periods. The DCN listed is the most recently filed CFR DCN for that period. You select the one that you want to bring the data forward from, and then you're asked a question. Do you want all data, which includes the dollars for the expenses and the revenues received during the previous period, or do you want master data only? Which brings forward all the programs that were from the last CFR, all the information about, most of the information about your agency. Most of you will choose to bring forward master data. Some of you that have, perhaps you're just doing a mini abbreviated each year, you might choose the all data option. If you've chosen to bring forward the data from your 22 CFR, but you didn't check all the agencies that were in that, you're going to get a warning screen here that, hey, the previous submission had 4 state agencies listed, you only have 3 marked here. This is something you can correct. You can go back to add that other agency. If, however, you've chosen previously the wrong reporting period or the wrong CFR type, that's something that you can't correct and you have to start over. If you're successful in bringing forward information from the previous CFR, you get this screen that you see here telling you that the carry forward is complete. Even if you, whatever you choose, even if you carry forward, you still have to go in and mark the beginning date and the end date of your financial statements. This is required because the program will then produce for you either a CFR II or a CFR II-A, depending on whether the financial statement period lines up with the CFR reporting period. You choose this is the calendar, and you go in and you mark the beginning month and year and date, day for the beginning of your reporting, of your financial statement, and then you do the same for the ending of your financial statement. Once you've brought forward all the information from the previous year, you may need to make some changes to that. For instance, if you want to change the site code or edit the site name you've given to the program or program site, you can go to the next to last column on the right, and those little pencils there, you can click on the pencil and you can go in and make some editing changes. If you're no longer offering a program that was in last year's CFR, you can go to the trash bin at the final column on the right and mark that. Click that, and that line will disappear from the new CFR. If you need to add a new program, you see the orange box up a little higher on the right. You click on that, and you're taken to this screen. The first step's to mark which state agency this program is for. And once you do that, you see the next line says program, and there's a down arrow there. You click on that, and it'll give you a listing of all the programs associated with that state agency. You select the one that's for your new program or program site. Then you go in and fill out the other information, site name, site code, the address of the site, et cetera, the county. Here's an example where we created a new OASIS program and we filled out everything here, and you hit the save button. Just so you know, if you are in the CFR and you step out for lunch, or maybe you were staying up late watching the Super Bowl, even though the Bills, Jets, Patriots, and Giants are not going to be involved this year, and you fell asleep at your desk, after 30 minutes, you're booted out of the program and you have to log back in to get in. This also, in case one of your coworkers needs to get in to work on something and you've walked out the door for some reason, they can get in after 30 minutes. So, another of those 4 boxes that we saw at the beginning was to continue submission and upload. And if you choose that quadrant, you can view the CFRs that are in process. What that means is that in process means you've created a new CFR file for a period. You've not yet submitted it to the state agencies. Once you go in there, and you'll see a listing here. Now, you see here there are 2 calendar 22s in here, but one has 4 state agencies listed, the other only has 3. It's impossible in this program for you to have 2 that are both fulls or both abbreviated that have the same state agencies for the same reporting period. There can only be 1. In this case, because there's a different number of state agencies, there was a test allowed to be created there. Once you've gone into that continue submission, you've selected the one you're interested in. You can either choose view submission, lower left, but if you do that and you get in there, then you won't be able to make any editing changes. Some people mistakenly choose that button, go in, and they call us and say, hey, I can't make any edits here. If you choose edit submission, of course, you can view it at that point, but you can also make any changes that you need to make. Once you've chosen to edit a submission, you get this warning box that tells you that if you're in a certain file, no one else from your agency will be able to get into that same file. You say yes to proceed. And you have options here. You can continue the edit to go in and make any amendments you wish to make. You can, at any point, choose stop edit, which takes you out of the file so your coworker can get in if they need to, or you can delete submission. Now, if you choose delete submission, you're going to get a warning saying, are you really sure you want to do that? Because once you do it, if it's something that hasn't been submitted yet, it's gone forever. So be very careful with that. If you've chosen to go in and continue the edit, it's going to take you to the provider agency information. You can then use the utilities, or not the menu, to go whichever schedule you want to work on. Once you've gone in to edit, you also get this confirmation page that tells you once you're in there, if you've locked out all your co-workers from getting in while you're in there. Again, here's the warning that you get if you're deleting a submission. You've chosen to delete, make sure it's telling you make sure you really want to do that. So as you look at what's in the work in progress section there, you see here we have a budget for OMH. It's a work in progress. You see here a full CFR. It's got a DCN, but it has yet to be submitted. This is something you can continue to work on. Once a CFR or a budget is submitted, they can't be deleted, or you can go in and amend them and submit a new one, but you can't delete what's already been submitted to us. The DCN assigned but not yet submitted, you can go in there, you can just view it. Perhaps your boss wants to take a look at it before you go forward. You can make further edits, or you can go ahead and click the submission button. If you have the authority, if you're a submitter, you can click that and it'll then be available for the state agencies to look at. The submission is also an option available through the utilities. That'll be covered later. If you've chosen to edit a CFR file that has a DCN but has not yet been submitted, you're going to get this warning telling you that if you go in to start editing it, that DCN is going to disappear and you'll have to go through the validation process again. That final step of submitting, again, is restricted to those with submitter status. It's also only those with submitter status that can upload a financial statement or the signed certification pages. In the past, you would get an email confirmation that CFR has been uploaded, or now it's a submission and the screen will just tell you that you have submitted that CFR, and then you can click the submission dashboard button there, and it'll show you for this period, calendar 23, you submitted a CFR, the date it was submitted. You'll also be able to go in and you can see from previous periods what's in there. Another one of those quadrants was review or revise CFRs, CBRs, and upload documents. This quadrant allows you to go in and you can choose whether you're looking for CFRs or budgets or whatever. You can go in this way if you've already submitted a CFR and you need to make some changes to the CFR and resubmit it. You see here, it's got a listing of everything that's been submitted. They're organized by period. Once you select the down arrow next to the period, it'll show you each of the DCNs that was submitted. Now, again, at that point, you've chosen one of the DCNs. If you choose View Submission, you will not be able to make any changes to it. If you choose Revise Submission, you can go ahead and make any changes that one of the state agencies or one of the counties ask you to make a change for. Once you've chosen to revise, it's going to tell you it's going to make a new DCN file for that period that won't have a DCN. If you want to, you can enter a description here. It's not really that necessary for CFRs, but if you're doing a budget, you may want to enter the contract in here as a description to help you keep track, especially if you've got multiple contracted programs you're working on. Okay, so here you see in red at the bottom of the screen, if you wanted to go in and make a change, but you already had a work in progress started for that period, you would get that error message there at the bottom of the screen telling you that you can't create a new one for the same period. This was also the quadrant where you go in when it's time to upload the financial statements, the certification pages, possibly the parent agency admin allocation. You have to choose a DCN that the financial statement or the certification pages are to be associated with. Once you go into that, then you can go into the submission, choose to upload, and you choose what it is that you're going to upload. Here you see an example where just the CFRI is clicked. You can click all three of these buttons and upload just one PDF with all those certifications included. The only certification that's supposed to be uploaded separately is the IV. Some of you will need to go in and upload a financial statement and then go back in here and upload certifications, then upload the IV certifications, then maybe upload the parent agency. Each of these circles means it's done separately, so it's one after the other. If you're uploading, if you've got certification pages that were electronically signed, then you have to submit them via the CFRS web. You can't email them. And you have to click this box attesting that this is legitimate, and then you can proceed to upload the electronically signed certification. Once you've done an upload, you see here at the bottom of the screen, the document has been uploaded successfully. And then when you go to look at the, if you went in to look at all the CFRs you're uploaded, you can click on one and for a period, and then you can click the button to view the supporting documents, and you'll see all the certifications and the financial statement that were uploaded for that period. If you're doing financial statements, a lot of people misidentify their financial statement. A consolidated financial statement includes information for more than one entity that has a separate federal EIN. A standalone only includes information for one EIN. So if you're the parent agency and you've got a financial statement that includes subsidiary organizations that have separate EINs, that's a consolidated financial statement. Some CPAs call a financial statement that includes last year's data and this year's as a consolidated, but it's not really. A single audit is for those of you who have certain federal programs, have to prepare that. That's something that you should be uploading both the single audit and your financial statement. There's also, as I said before, you can upload certification pages or the IV or the parent agency allocation if you have a charge like that that you have to give supporting information for. Here you see the example I told you before. So for this period, calendar 21, we had a CFR uploaded here, and we've gotten different certifications uploaded. These were all uploaded on the same date. If you had a second CFR DCN uploaded for that period, when you looked for uploaded documents, you'd see all the certifications listed. There really should only be one standalone or single entity financial statement uploaded. You might have both a single entity and a consolidated to upload. You might have a federal audit financial statement to upload, but you only need to upload these things once, even if you've resubmitted CFRs a couple of times. The fourth quadrant from that homepage was the helpful links quadrant there. This will let you go, if you click on there, you can go to the different state agencies. Or you can go straight to the manual to look something up, or you can go to click to get to where we have training information posted. Here's an example of the OMH website, and there's information on there. If you've chosen state agencies and you chose to go to OMH, you can see here there's different things listed in here that you can get to. And at this point, I'm going to pass the mic over to the next presenter, and there you have it.
Thank you, Francis. Good morning, everyone. This is Lisa Vickery from the Office of Addiction Services and Supports, and today I'll be going over the menu and certification. Now that you're in the CFR, you can use the menu to navigate between schedules. The menu icon can be found in the top left corner of any page in CFRS Web. Once selected, the expanded menu will be visible on the left side of the screen. To fully use the menu options, you must be actively editing a CFR. The menu lists the schedules in the recommended order of completion. However, you may complete the schedules in any order. If you choose to complete schedules out of order, remember that specific data will not be seen until the feeder schedule is completed. Once the feeder schedule is completed, that information is carried forward to another schedule. An example of a feeder schedule is the CFR 4A. Each screen has a Next Schedule and Previous Schedule button at the bottom of the page. By default, the Next Schedule button follows the recommended order of completion. The gold line indicates where you are on the menu. Currently, the gold line is on the Provider Agency Definition screen. To complete the Provider Agency Definition screen, you'll need the following information regarding your agency: 5-digit agency code, the legal name of your organization, the street address and county name of your administrative office, the ownership type, which would be not-for-profit, proprietary, or governmental, federal employer ID number, and your agency's audited financial statement reporting period. If you imported data from a prior period CFR, the information will be transferred. The start and end date of your financial statements does not transfer and will always need to be completed. Imported data should always be reviewed for accuracy. If you did not have a prior period CFR to import data from, the bolded lines indicate required information and must be completed. To complete the program and site definition screen, you will need the following information regarding your agency's programs and sites: types of programs your agency operates, the New York State agencies that certify or fund the programs. For each program being operated, you will need the 4-digit program code and 2-digit index code, the site code, or PRU number for OASIS, and the physical address and county name. The program and site information can be imported or entered manually. On this screen, you can add a program by clicking on the button at the top right, edit a program by clicking the pencil icon, or delete a program by clicking on the trash can. The certification schedules are the CFR I, CFR III, CFR III, and CFR IV. Based on your agency's CFR submission type, the certification schedules that require data input will be listed in the menu. The preferred method for submitting the signed certification schedules is CFRS Web. The CFR-I is used to report agency identifying data and serves as a certification statement by the agency's Chief Executive Officer attesting to the validity of the information contained in the document. Information in the gray area is non-enterable and has been carried forward from the provider definition screen. All bolded fields must be completed. Use the checkboxes provided to indicate if contact information has changed from the prior period submission. This would include changes to the following: agency address, contact person, who is also referred to as the fiscal contact and should be the person able to answer questions regarding the CFR, the Chief Executive Officer, who is also responsible for signing the CFR-I, the President, Chair, Board of Directors, and the claims contact. If your agency receives state aid from OASIS, OMH, or OPWDD, this should be the person who can answer questions regarding the claim. Up-to-date CEO and fiscal contact emails are essential to receive communication from the New York State agencies. If the contact person and claims contact are the same, click Copy Contact. The information will automatically be filled in. Once completed, select Next Schedule to proceed. In summary, the CFR-I is required for all CFR submissions, must be signed and dated by your Executive Director, CEO, and may not be accepted if it is signed and dated by anyone else. It requires contact information for the agency's fiscal contact and the President, Chair, Board of Directors. It should be uploaded in CFRS Web. The signed and dated schedule must have the same DCN as the submitted CFR, and certifications that are signed but not dated may need to be resubmitted to satisfy the filing requirements. The CFR III schedules are the accountant's report for not-for-profit and proprietary service providers. Imported data should be reviewed for accuracy and all applicable fields should be completed. The CFR III is required for most full CFR submissions. It should be signed and dated by an independent certified public accountant, sole practitioner, partner of the CPA firm, or the CPA firm that audited and certified the CFR. It should be uploaded in CFRS Web. It should have the same DCN as the CFR submitted and should adhere to the audit examination guidelines in Appendix AA of the CFR manual. Please keep in mind that the CFR prints on multiple pages and all pages must be uploaded to meet the filing requirements. A CFR or II will be printed based on the audited financial statement reporting period that was entered in the provider agency definition screen. The CFR will print when the financial statements and the CFR reporting period are the same. The CFR AA will print when the financial statements and the CFR reporting period are different. Counties and other municipalities have three options. They can submit a CFR II, CFR IA, or a compliance review. The CFR III is required for providers that receive state aid. It is not required for providers that operate only rate-based and/or unfunded programs. Required signatures are as follows. If your agency is funded through a direct contract, the executive director must sign and date the left side of the certification statement designated for voluntary local service provider. If your agency is funded through a local county contract, the left side of the certification must be signed and dated by your executive director, and the right side must be signed and dated by the county director of community mental health services. Counties must have the middle section of the certification signed and dated by the county treasurer and the right side signed and dated by the director of community mental health services. In summary, the CFR III should be uploaded in CFRS Web. It must have the same DCN as the submitted CFR, and we ask that you submit a signed and dated copy of the CFR III to the funding DMH state agencies at the same time it is sent to the county. The CFR IV is a series of yes, no, or non-applicable questions regarding the fiscal status of the agency. It is required as part of the full abbreviated or Article 28 abbreviated CFR submissions of not-for-profit and proprietary providers submitting to OASIS, OMH, and OPWDD. The CFR IV schedule is used to report agency identifying data and serves as a certification statement by the service provider's chief executive officer, attesting to the validity of the information contained in the document under the penalties prescribed in accordance with Article 175 of New York State Penal Law, or false written statements. It is not required for SED-only CFR filers, governmental service providers, mini-abbreviated CFRs. Certifications that are signed but not dated may need to be resubmitted to satisfy the filing requirements. This is the end of my section, and I will now hand it over to the next presenter.
This is Ann Hoffman from the Office of Mental Health, and today I'll be covering Schedule CFR 4, CFR 4A, and CFR 1. CFR 4 is personal services. It is a two-tab data entry screen. The first tab is for program site, program administration, and LGU administration. The second tab is for agency administration. If you are completing the program site tab, select a state agency, program, and site from the drop-down boxes. If you transfer data from a prior period, some rows may be pre-populated. If you wish to create a new row of data, select Add a Line. Select the desired position title code from the drop-down box. Enter the standard work week, aggregate total hours paid, and amount paid for all individuals working in the specified position title code. Repeat the same steps for each additional position title code. CFRS Web will calculate the FTEs to 3 decimal places. In order to delete an entire row of data, click on the trash can icon located in the desired row. Beginning with the 2022 calendar year CFR reporting period, and for subsequent CFR reporting periods, is the CFR 4 Informational Only section. If applicable, completion of the Informational Only section is required. The total hours paid and total amount paid should include the amounts of overtime reported. The Informational Only section includes overtime hours included in total hours paid, overtime amount included in total amount paid, average hourly rate, and annualized salary. Located at the far right of the screen is a total for the program site reporting for each position title code sharing the same standard work week. The column headers are as follows: state agency total for all programs, total hours paid, FTE, total amount paid. To complete the Agency Administrative Personnel Services, select the Agency Administration tab and follow the same process. Only 600 series position title codes are available for use. Only personal services related to employees of your agency are reported on this schedule. Individuals who receive W-2s are considered to be employees. A separate Schedule CFR 4 is completed for the agency administration personal service expenses of your entire agency. 100% of the amounts paid for agency administration staff must be reported. CFR 4 is included in all CFR submission types. New York State agency-specific and shared program-specific CFR 4s are prepared for staff providing program services. Agency administration staff is reported in a single column on a separate Schedule CFR 4. All agency administration staff is reported in this column regardless of the size of the New York State agency programs in relation to the total agency. Individuals receiving 1099 tax forms are considered to be independent contractors. Position title codes are listed in Appendix R. The positions are functional titles and may not match the corporate titles used by your agency. Position title codes may be specific to New York State agencies or program types. For example, Position Title Code 211 will not be an option in the drop-down list for an OPWD program. So the level of position title codes: 100 level are for support staff, 200 level are for direct care staff, 300 level are clinical staff, 400 level is production staff, 500 level is program administration staff, 600 level is agency administration staff, 700 level is local government unit staff only. Direct care and clinical staff hours are a key component of the rate rationalization process for OPWDD. Please be sure to give your staff the appropriate codes. The standard work week must be at least 35 hours, but no more than 45 hours per week. The hours paid, FTEs, and amount paid totals are shown by column. Where applicable, employees' hours and salaries paid should be allocated between programs and/or position title codes. This is a calculation of FTEs. It's the hours paid divided by the standard work week times 52. The example of the FTE calculation for a position where the standard full-time work week is 35 hours per week and the employee worked 22.5 hours a week for 40 weeks during the fiscal year. This example shows the calculation of the FTE and represents the most complicated calculation, a less than full-time employee who worked for less than a full year. CFARS Web does all the calculations for you. The totals of the CFR 4 input carry forward to CFR 1, line 16 for full CFRs, CFR 3, line 1 for full CFRs, DMH 1, line 6 for abbreviated and Article 28 abbreviated CFRs. Schedule CFR 4A, Contracted Direct Care and Clinical Personal Services. This schedule is used to report the amount paid to individuals or organizations that have contracted with the service provider to provide direct care and/or clinical personal services. All other contracted services must be reported on the appropriate expense line of the CFR 1 or CFR 3 schedule. It's the same data entry process as CFR 4, except the input of the standard work week is not required. Direct care hours, so position title codes 200 to 299, and clinical hours, position title codes 300 to 399, are an important part of OPWD's rate rationalization formula. Be sure to report an accurate total for contracted hours on the CFR 4A. Only contracted direct care and clinical staff positions are reported on the schedule CFR 4A. Contracted staff includes those individuals that are not issued a W-2 by the provider agency. Position title codes are found in Appendix R of the CFR manual. Report hours at paid and amount paid. The hours paid field cannot be left blank. Total contracted direct care and clinical personal services carries forward to CFR 1, line 35. CFR 4A is only included in full CFR submission types. If contracted staff are not paid by the hour, an estimate of hours paid must be made. Entries of 0 or 1 hour will not generally be accepted. Questions regarding whether or not an individual is a contractor or an employee should be directed to the IRS, the service provider's accountant, and/or tax attorney. CFR 1, Program Site, Data, General Information. CFR 1 is a 3-tab data entry screen: General Information, Expenses, and Revenues. To enter program site data, select a state agency, program, and site from the drop-down boxes. Gray fields are not enterable. Data is populated from a different schedule or screen. Data on lines 1 through 6 and 8 carries forward from the program site definition screen. For Medicaid eligible programs, report both the Medicaid provider agreement number on line 7A and the National Provider ID number, NPI, on line 7B. Both numbers should be associated with the program site being reported. CFR 1 is only included in full CFR submission types. CFR 1 is a state agency specific, program site, or shared program specific schedule. Units of service. It is critical that units of service delivered during the reporting period are captured, counted, and reported accurately and correctly. Inaccurate units of service reported is cause for rejection of submitted CFRs. It is expected that providers will train staff regarding the appropriate measurement of units of service, ensure that information is recorded at the time the service is delivered, and make data available in the format of the CFR. For OASIS programs, units of service reported in the CFR must match the units of service reported to the OASIS monthly service delivery system for the period covered by the CFR. For OMH programs, OMH units of service carry forward from the OMH1 schedule, and there will be more on OMH1 later. The units of service reported are accrued based on the date of service, not the date of payment. All units of service provided must be reported, including those for which no payment was received. Okay. CFR 1, line 13. So CFR section 13.0, CFR 1 of the manual were updated. So line 13 is the total units of service, and it's calculated total of the lines. 13A, Medicaid fee for service units of service. 13B, Medicaid managed care units of service. And 13C, all other units of service. Refer to page 13.5 of the CFR manual for additional guidance. This is a screenshot of part of CFR 1. There are more expense lines that can be displayed on one screen. Use the scroll bar on the right side of the screen to access lines not displayed. Remember, expenses and revenues are reported on the accrual basis of accounting. These are the categories on CFR 1. Personal services from Schedule CFR 4. Vacation leave accruals, fringe benefits, other than personal services, equipment, property, and agency administration, which is allocated from Schedule CFR 3. Line 16, personal services, carried forward from Schedule CFR 4. Line 17, vacation leave accruals, report the increase or decrease in vacation accruals from the previous year. Line 18, mandated fringe benefits, includes FICA, Medicare, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, New York State disability, and New York State family leave. Line 19, non-mandated fringe benefits, includes health insurance, dental insurance, and pensions. Line 22, repairs and maintenance, includes costs for maintenance and minor repairs, as well as contracts for housekeeping, garbage, and snow removal. Line 26, participant incidentals, includes costs associated with participant entertainment, recreation, summer camps, clothing, etc. Line 28, expensed equipment, the cost of all program, site, and/or program administration, non-adaptive equipment purchased during the cost report period with a value of less than $5,000 or a useful life of less than 2 years. Refer to Appendix O of the CFR manual for more information regarding how equipment is reported in the CFR. Line 35, contracted direct care and clinical personal services carried forward from Schedule CFR 4A. Line 36, supplies and materials, non-household, includes costs for program supplies, medical supplies, printing, copying, postage, computer software, etc. Line 39, insurance general. The insurance costs for general liability, bonding, which is crime fidelity, professional and medical malpractice, vehicle or other insurance costs related to program, site, and program administration. Do not report insurance expenses related to equipment or property on this line. The OTPS, equipment, and property categories each have an other line for miscellaneous items. Information is entered through a line detail box. Detail is required for individual items costing $1,000 or more, and individual items costing less than $1,000 each may be grouped together as all items less than $1,000 each. This is a screenshot of the line detail box for CFR 1 line 40, other. Data input for lines with a line detail box icon can only be entered by clicking on the icon to the right of the line. Line detail boxes are customized to meet specific New York State agency needs with predefined item descriptions. Additional item descriptions can be added by clicking Add a Line and typing in the new description. Be specific in your description. Data entered in the line detail box is totaled and the details are shown on the worksheet details section of the CFR. Do not report items on line 40, OTPS Other, that should be reported on a specifically defined line. Two examples of items reported on CFR 1 line 40, which should have been reported on predefined lines, include copying, printing, postage of $1,227 should be reported on line 36, supplies and materials, non-household. Rubbish removal of $3,999 should be reported on line 22, repairs and maintenance. Bad debt expense. Bad debt expense should be reported on the appropriate schedules as follows. CFR 1, line 40, and adjusted out as not allowable on line 66. CFR 2, column 9, line 4, and adjusted out as not allowable on line 8. CFR 3, line 17, and adjusted out as not allowable on line 41. Refer to the FAQ on page 8.13 of the CFR manual for further guidance. Certain assets are depreciated. Line 44 is depreciation for vehicle. Line 45, depreciation for equipment. Line 51, depreciation for building. Line 52, depreciation for building and land improvements. All items with an individual cost of $5,000 or more and a useful life of 2 years or more must be depreciated. See Appendix O of the CFR manual for guidance on capitalization and depreciation. Group purchases of like items should be treated as a single purchase. Group purchases of unlike items should be treated as if each item was purchased individually. Telephone systems and computer systems should be treated as a group purchase. Line 66, adjustments, not allowable costs. Enter the description, line number, and amount of all non-allowable expenses reported in any line of the CFR 1 in the line detail box. Negative numbers cannot be entered in the line detail box. Refer to Appendix X for some, not all, non-allowable costs. And report the amount in excess of actual cost or fair market value for related party transactions disclosed on CFR 5. This is a screenshot of CFR 1 line 66 for the line detail box. The line number refers to where the individual expense is originally reported and is being adjusted out as non-allowable. OPWD only informational lines F and G are for reporting phase 1 of the workforce stabilization, and lines H and I are for reporting phase 2 of the workforce stabilization. Lines 68A, B, D, E, F, G, H, and I will be discussed during the OPWD agency-specific section. Revenues. Remember, expenses and revenues are reported on the accrual basis of accounting. Line 69, participant fees. Report the revenues received from program participants in excess of SSI and SSA, self-pay. Line 72A, Medicaid fee for service, a revenue category representing payments received for services to eligible participants under the combined federal and state program, which pays for medical care for those who cannot afford it, regardless of age. Line 72B, Medicaid managed care, a delivery system of Medicaid health benefits and additional services through contracted arrangements between state Medicaid agencies and managed care organizations that accept a set per member per month payment for these services. Line 74, other third parties. The revenue from private health insurance coverage, which includes but is not limited to Blue Cross, HMOs, and other insurance carriers. Line 79, federal grants. Report grant revenues received directly from an administering federal government agency in support of the service providers programs. CFR's web includes the following predefined entries: U.S. Department of Agriculture, Education, Health and Human Services, Justice, Labor, and Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is for OASIS only. CFR's web has been modified to include predefined entries for Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance, EIDL, and Federal Emergency Management Agency, grants, FEMA. Do not include federal grant revenue received from OASIS, OMH, OPWD, DOH, and OCFS as aid to localities funding. Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. Report only the amount of the PPP loan that was forgiven and recorded as revenue or as a gain on the extinguishment of debt. Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance, EIDL, FEMA, Federal Communications Commission, FCC, Federal Tax Credits, Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, EPSLA, refundable credit, Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, expanded FMLA, refundable credit, Employee Retention Credit, which is refundable. Additional lines are available by use of the Add a Line button in CFR's web. Line 80, state grants. Report grant revenues received from New York State agencies other than the CFR reporting agencies. CFR's web includes the following predefined entries: New York State Department of Health, Labor, Transportation, the Division of Criminal Justice Services, Housing and Community Renewal, Parole, Veterans Affairs, and New York State Office of Children and Family Services. This does not include monies received from OASIS, OMH, OPWD, and/or SED, and does not include aid to localities funding received from OASIS, OMH, and/or OPWD. Instead, those monies would be reported as net deficit funding on line 93. Line 82, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Report food-related revenues. This is for OASIS and OPWD programs only. Line 83, Gifts, Legacies, Bequests, Donations. Report the monetary contribution revenue derived from gifts, legacies, bequests, and donations. Non-monetary donations or contributions are reported as reconciling items on the reconciliation if the schedule is required. Please see the FAQ in section 8.0 of the CFR manual for additional details. Line 86, prior period rate adjustments. Report the revenue from a rate appeal, rate adjustment, or retroactive contingency contracts. Do not include net deficit funding amounts on this line. For SED, report any reconciliation adjustments from a prior period, including any reconciliation tuition adjustments included as part of the prospective tuition rate. This is not applicable to OASIS and OMH service providers. And OPWD, Medicaid recovery should also be reported on this line. Lines 93 and 103, net deficit funding. These are funds received by the LGU from a DMH state agency and passed on to the service provider. Funds received directly from a DMH state agency via direct contract, and funds received directly from the funding LGU. Line 94, other revenue. Some examples include OASIS, closely allied entity revenue, OMH, safety net payments, vital access providers Medicaid revenue, and OPWD, assistive supports revenue, revenue for non-Medicaid eligible individuals under predefined OPWD state paid. The revenues, GAAP adjustments to revenues, and non-GAAP adjustments to revenues categories each have another line for miscellaneous items. Information is entered through a line detail box. Detail is required for individual items of $1,000 or more, and individual items less than $1,000 each may be grouped together as all items less than $1,000 each. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll pass it off to the next presenter.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate, and I work at New York State Education Department in the rate setting unit. I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. I'm going to pass it off to Mackenzie from State Ed.
This is Mackenzie. I will go ahead and go over this CFR2 agency fiscal summary slide. So only column 9 is enterable. Data for columns 2 to 8 carry forward from DMH1. Column 1 is calculated by CFRS Web, sum of columns 2 to 9. Column 1, lines 7, 9, and 10 should match the respective categories in your financial statements. If there is a discrepancy between the CFR2 and your financial statements, it should be explained through the input on the reconciliation. CFR2 captures the expenses and revenues for the entire agency. Totals for each New York State agency are displayed in separate columns. Agencies' activities not inclusive of state programs are to be reported in column 9, other programs. And you'd refer to page 31 of the sample. This is full and abbreviated CFRs only, not required for Article 28 abbreviated or mini abbreviated CFRs. And it's agency-wide schedule. Also reported in column 9, expenses and revenues relating to fundraising and special events, realized and unrealized gains and losses, management services expenses provided to another provider agency on an ongoing basis. The provider agency totals reported in column 1 will be compared to your financial statement totals. If the reporting periods are the same, any discrepancies will need to be explained in the reconciliation. Fundraising and fundraising special events are not considered agency administration expenses and cannot be reported on CFR 3. It is expected that the CFR reporting of fundraising and special events will match the reporting in your agency's financial statements. Operating expenses reported on CFR 2 are used to distribute agency administration expenses between the CFR reporting programs. Operating expenses include personal services, vacation leave accruals, fringe benefits, and OTPS, less raw materials. Reconciliation. The reconciliation schedule is not required if the CFR reporting period and the financial statement period are different. If a reconciliation schedule is required, it must be completed in order to pass validation. Refer to page 94 of the sample. Government entities Article 28 abbreviated and mini abbreviated CFR filers are not required to complete the reconciliation. For required reconciliation, the amount calculated as a difference in the worksheet should be less than $100 in order to pass validations. Here's a screenshot of the reconciliation expenses. So report the sum of total expenses and total losses as reported in the financial statements. Using the additions and subtractions drop-down detail boxes, report the expenses and losses included in the CFR2 that were not included in the financial statements. Reconciliation revenues. Common reconciling items may be reported as additions, subtractions in the reconciliation schedule, such as elimination of intercompany expenses and revenues, depreciation differences. Differing allowable depreciation methods have been reported in the CFR and statement of activities expense in the financial statements. Other. Report any other item differences between the financial statements and the CFR that are not reported as adjustments, non-allowable costs on CFR 1 or CFR 3. A description should be added with any items reported here. Rounding. Any remaining difference between expenses reported on the financial statements and the CFR should be reported on this line. CFR 2A. The CFR 2A schedule must be completed by all not-for-profit and proprietary providers when financial statements are required to be submitted. It is not required for Article 28 abbreviated filers, many abbreviated filers, and governmental entities. This schedule is used to report data from your financial statements that were submitted in accordance with sections 2 and 6, and also data from the underlying year-end adjusted accounting records that support these financial statements. The purpose of this schedule is to collect data in a uniform way in order for each state agency to have it readily available for provider-specific fiscal analysis as well as industry-wide statistics. And instructions for completing Schedule CFR 2A can be found in Section 14 of the CFR manual. And here's a screenshot of the CFR 2A. CFR 2A Section 28 has been renamed to Operating Transactions. CFR 2A, line 28A, is used to report operating revenues and operating gains. CFR 2A, line 28B, is used to report operating expenses and operating losses. For 1718 forward, line 33, debt management, and line 34, going concern, have been added to the CFR 2A. CFR 3, Agency Administration. Agency administration consists of the costs associated with the overall direction of the agency, general record keeping and financial management, governing board activities, public relations, excluding those costs associated with fundraising and special events. Direct identification of specific expenses is the preferred method for charging expenses to various functions. Further, indirect costs are those activities or services that benefit more than one project or activity and may require to be allocated. In this case, the allocation method must be reasonable, consistent, and reviewed by management. Some examples include time studies, square footage, actual use, and percentage of direct cost. And note, proper documentation should be retained regarding the methods used. Providers should consult the CFR manual, appendices I and K. Full CFR filers report the agency administration costs for the entire provider agency on a single CFR 3 schedule. Abbreviated CFR filers complete the agency administration worksheet in lieu of a CFR 3. And this would be pages 34 to 35 of the sample, and it's agency-wide schedule. Here's a screenshot of the CFR3. The CFR3 is a 3-tab data entry screen. Personal services, fringe benefits, OTPS, equipment, property, and ratio value. CFR3 expense categories. Personal services from Schedule CFR4, vacation leave accruals, fringe benefits, other than personal services or OTPS, equipment, property, parent agency administration allocation. Remember, fundraising and fundraising special events costs are not to be reported on CFR3. They are to be reported in full on CFR2, column 9. If a parent agency administration allocation is reported on line 38, documentation of the administration allocation must be sent with the certification schedules. This must include total parent agency cost, total allocated cost to each of the subordinate agencies, and the basis used for the allocation. Section 15.0 of the CFR manual was revised to provide additional guidance on reporting parent agency administration allocation on CFR 3, line 38. Line 6, audit, legal, accounting, includes the cost of other accounting services such as payroll services and CFR audit costs. Line 14, contracted personal services such as management consulting services, IT support, and more. Items with a cost in excess of $5,000 must be listed in the line detail box separately by description and amount. Items costing less than $5,000 each may be aggregated and listed as all items less than $5,000. Costs to develop internal use software during the application development stage are capitalized, not included on this line. Refer to US GAAP Codification of Accounting Standards topic 350-40 Internal Use Software. Refer to US GAAP Codification of Accounting Standards topic 350-50 Website Development Costs. Line 16, Insurance General. Insurance costs for general liability, bonding, crime fidelity, professional malpractice, vehicle or other insurance costs related to agency administration. Do not report insurance expenses related to equipment or property on this line. And here's a screenshot of CFR 3, agency administration. The OTPS, equipment, and property categories each have an other line for miscellaneous items. Information is entered through a line detail box. Detail is required for individual items costing $1,000 or more. Individual items costing less than $1,000 each may be grouped together as all items less than $1,000 each. Note, if the total of the grouped items is excessive, you may be asked for a detailed breakdown. Line 41, adjustments, non-allowable costs. Enter the description line number and amount of all non-allowable expenses reported in any line of the CFR3 in the line detail box. Refer to Appendix X for some, but not all, non-allowable costs. Report the amount in excess of actual cost or fair market value for all administrative-related party transactions disclosed on the CFR5. The amounts entered must be greater than or equal to 0. Line 42. Net agency administration is the amount to be allocated using the ratio value method. Here's another screenshot. All data elements are populated by CFRS Web. All calculations are performed by CFRS Web. Calculated values are carried forward to CFR1, CFR2, and DMH1. Ratio value allocation. The total corporate agency administration expenses are allocated to all agency funding sources using the ratio value method. The ratio value method uses operating costs of the program sites as the basis of the allocation. Operating costs are defined as personal services, vacation leave accruals, fringe benefits, and OTPS, less raw materials. Schedule CFR 3 uses a two-step process to allocate agency administration costs. And CFRS Web completes all of the calculations for you. Step 1. Total corporate agency administration expenses from CFR 3, line 42, are allocated to each funding New York State agency. Operating costs for program codes 0880 and 0890 are excluded from this ratio value calculation. Step 1. Calculation steps. Total agency operating costs are carried forward from CFR 2, columns 2 to 9, to CFR 3, lines 43 to 50, and are totaled on line 51. Line 51 is carried forward to line 53. Net agency administration is carried forward from CFR 3, line 42 to CFR 3, line 52. Line 52 is divided by line 53 to develop the 6-digit ratio value factor on line 54. The ratio value factor is applied to the operating costs on CFR 3, lines 43 to 50, to calculate each funding source's share of agency administration costs, and the allocation is displayed on lines 55 to 62. Step 2. A second ratio allocation is performed at the state agency level, exempting additional New York State agency-specific programs. A list of the program codes not included in the Step 2 calculation can be found in Section 15 of the CFR Manual. The second step of the ratio value allocation is done within the New York State agency shares assigned in Step 1, allowing additional specified program types to be exempted. The second step, exempted programs, are OPWDD program code 0190 and OMH program codes 0860, 0870, 1230, 1690, 2740, 2850, 2860, 2980, 6920, 8810, and programs with an A program code index. Startup. The adjusted ratio value factors are displayed on lines 71 to 77. Here's a screenshot of the agency admin worksheet for abbreviated filers. Not included in the sample. Agency administration must be calculated using the ratio value method. Enter total agency administration expenses on line 8, and CFRS Web does the rest. Some agency administration final thoughts. All agencies have agency administration expenses. Agency administration expenses need to be distributed to all activities fairly. Ratio value is the required method used to allocate agency administration expenses on the core reports. Ratio value is based on operating costs. In calculating expected administrative and overhead expenses, hospitals should use the most recent available allocation percentages from the step-down derived from the latest Institutional Cost Report, ICR, for the period submitted to the Department of Health, Office of Health Insurance Programs, OHIP, as per Appendix Y. For more information on the CFR 3 schedule, please see Section 15 of the CFR Manual. For more information on agency administration in general, please see Appendix I on Section 42 of the CFR Manual. Please refer to Appendix T, Section 53, for more information on how to calculate agency administration on an abbreviated CFR. And I will now hand this over to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Emily Seward from OPWDD, and I will begin with CFR 5. The CFR 5 is required for all submission types, but Article 28 abbreviated. This schedule is used to report any activities that may be considered a conflict of interest, such as, but
change the slide.
Thank you, sorry. Where was I? So the CFR 5 is used to report any activities that could be considered a conflict of interest, but such as but not limited to transactions between family members, a key person of the provider or their relative that has financial interest in the organization, if an individual has financial interest in both the service provider and related organization, if another entity has financial interest in the organization, or if the service provider has financial interest in another entity. It should be noted for OASIS and OPWDD providers that the term related organization and or individuals is outlined in Article 25.06 of the Mental Hygiene Law. OASIS providers should also refer to the administrative and fiscal guidelines for OASIS providers. Accounting standards require disclosure in the financial statements for some of these transactions. Additional detail is available in Section 18 of the CFR Manual. CFR 5 begins with 2 yes or no questions that must be answered. If the answer to both is no, you are done with the schedule and can move on to CFR 6. If yes is selected for question number 1, you must fill out Section B for OASIS, OMH, SED, OPWDD, DOH, and OCFS providers, or else an error message will pop up. The same applies to question number 2. If this is answered yes for OASIS, OMH, OPWDD, DOH, and OCFS providers, then Section D must be filled out. If not, there will be an error message reminding you. If question 1 was answered yes, then Section B is where the details of the transaction are reported. You must select Add a Line at the bottom of the page to begin entering the details. In column 2, the trans ID will be automatically generated by CFRS Web. In column 3, you must select 3 programs or sites that are affected before you can enter any data in the line. Column 4, you type in the description of the transaction, for example, a property lease rental. In column 5, pretty straightforward, the name of the related organization or individual. Column 6 is where the relationship to the provider is selected. More detailed descriptions of the options can be found in the manual section 18 in the relationship key. Column 7, this is the amount of said transaction. Column 8, the total allowable cost of the transaction, which is the lower of the related organization or individual's actual cost, or the fair market value of providing the service or supply. Column 9 is calculated by subtracting column 8 from column 7. This cannot be entered directly. Any portion of the transaction that is not allowable must be transferred to CFR 1, line 66, CFR 3, line 41, and DMH 1, line 13. Lease or rental agreements reported in Section B must be detailed in Section C. The expenses detailed in Section C should be the related organization / individual's actual cost in operating the building. used by the service provider and not the rental payments made to the related organization and/or individual. If a space lease/rental transaction relates to more than 3 programs or sites and/or administration, more details should be provided for the 3 most affected programs or sites listed in column 3 of section B. Again, to begin filling out this section, you must click on Add a Line. In column 2, select the corresponding trans ID from section B. In column 3, select the program or sites affected. Columns 4, depreciation, 5, mortgage interest, 6, insurance, 7, property taxes must all be filled out. Any other expense should be completed in column 8, other. Any items entered in this column more than $1,000 must be linked in the worksheet separately by description and amount. Any items less than $1,000 may be aggregated and listed as all items less than $1,000 each, with the combined total amount. Column 9 will automatically take the sum of columns 4 through 8 for each item. Before moving on to the next section, make sure that any adjustments to allowable costs from column 9 are also reported on CFR 1, line 66, CFR 3, line 41, and DMH 1, line 13. Here is a screenshot of where the adjustment to allowable costs from CFR 5 must also be reported on CFR 1, line 66, in the description adjustment to lease. Section D must be filled out by OASIS, OMH, OPW, DD, DOH, and OCFS providers if question number 2 was answered yes, which was that the provider received any financial assistance or if the provider provided financial aid. Column 2, the trans ID will be auto-generated. Column 3 lists the name of the party or individual. Columns 4 through 5, the address. Column 6, enter what kind of financial aid. Column 7, you must select either the funding to or funding from box. Column 8 is the amount of said financial aid. And that concludes CFR 5 and moving on to CFR 6. CFR 6 is used to report the salaries given to a provider's board members, employees under Title Code 601, 602, 603, which are executive directors or CEOs, assistant executive directors, and CFOs, controllers, or controllers, respectively. Also, any employees that earn more than $150,000 a year, whether through salary or contract. The top 5 highest paid independent contractors that receive more than $50,000 per year. Newly added this year, any people operating under a contract with a separate entity that would normally fall under Title Codes 601, 602, and 603. This schedule is required to be completed by all service providers funded by New York State. CFR 6 is required for all submissions except for Article 28 abbreviated and many abbreviated CFRs. If any employees serve on the governing authority, then select yes to the question in section 1. Please note that this question does not include a non-voting member that is on the board, like a president, executive director, or CEO. If yes for this section is selected, it will prompt the user to input the employee name and their title code. You must hit add a line to complete. Section 2 is where all compensated board members will be listed individually. If an employee is also on the board, only report their compensation solely as a board member. Also important to note is that the compensation does not include stipends or dinner meetings. And then here is a screenshot of section 2. Amount paid is pretty self-explanatory along with the contracted payment amount. Any employee benefits like health insurance or retirement that is accessible by all employees must be reported in the fringe benefits column. Any other benefits that may be given out in place of money, like awards or loans, are reported as other benefits. To report on this line, you must add a line and fill in the description of the benefit and its cash value. Total compensation will total all other filled out columns automatically. You do not need to input this manually. All 601, 602, and 603 positions are reported in Section 3, along with all employees that have a yearly salary that exceeds $150,000, which includes salary and contracted payments. You must click Add a Line to begin reporting. Concerning the annualized salary, it is important to note that the result of the amount paid for performance and completion of regular services divided by the FTE. If the FTE is greater than 1, the amount paid divided by 1 is calculated. For example, if an employee earned $44,000 in the last 4 months of the reporting period, to annualize the person's income, multiply $44,000 by 12 divided by 4 to equal $132,000. Here is an example showing if the other benefit in CFR 6, column 9 is a non-allowable cost. Mary Reynolds, the CEO, received money for car expenses that was not given to all employees, thus making it an unallowable cost. This means that the expense will also have to be reported on CFR 3, line 41. Here is a screenshot of where the non-allowable cost of Mary's car expense needs to be listed on CFR 3, line 41. If this was missed initially, you would have to go back and adjust. And a description and value must be assigned here, and then click Add a Line. The top 5 highest paid independent contractors are reported in Section 4. These can be individuals or entities, and the compensation must be over $50,000 to be listed here. To add to this section, hit Add a Line, list the name of the contractor, and select the type of contractor in the dropdown, and report the amount paid during the reporting period. And that concludes CFR 6. Moving on to DMH1. All CFR types with the mini abbreviated must fill out the DMH1. Also exempt are providers for SED, DOH, and OCFS only programs. The data in DMH1 is taken directly from the inputted data for CFR1. If you need to change any of the data on this schedule, it will need to be changed on prior schedules. However, for those submitting abbreviated and Article 28 abbreviated CFRs, the data will not be calculated and will need to be manually inputted. Lines are reported by either program type or program site. The index code and program type together will designate whether a site is aggregated or not. Generally, if only one column is required, enter 00 for every occurrence. If there is multiple columns allowed, enter 01 for the first occurrence, then 02 for the second, and so on. Requirements for filling out the DMH1 include using the full accrual basis of accounting. If you are listing any equipment that is worth equal to or more than $5,000 and has a useful life of 2 years or more, it has to be depreciated on this schedule. For full and abbreviated CFR types, agency administration will be separated by New York State agencies in their programs using the ratio value allocation methodology. Here is a screenshot of DMH1 and CFRS Web. The 3 tabs or sections of to DMH1 are at the top of the page: program units of service and expenses, program revenues, and program adjustments to revenues. Again, for full CFRs, the data will be transferred automatically to the DMH1 when filling out abbreviated Article 28 abbreviated. You must manually fill out this schedule. If additional items over $1,000 need to be reported on lines 30, 34, and 40, they require more detail. Remember, if you are filing a full CFR, you must go back to CFR1 to enter this data. Then it will transfer to DMH1. For example, go to line 94 on CFR1, and you will click on Add a Line on the bottom to input the detailed description and amount. Federal and state grants can be adjusted on lines 78 and 79 on CFR1 as needed. There are specific lines to reflect EIDL and FEMA grants. If another line is needed, then you simply can use the Add a Line option at the bottom. Lines 1 through 2 are the program type and code. Lines 3 through 5 are the units of service. Lines 6 through 14 are expenses. Lines 15 through 31 are revenues. The lines above will be grayed out if filing a full CFR, and you cannot input directly as shown here. Lines 37 through 44 are the non-GAAP adjustments to revenue. At the bottom of the schedule is a yellow DMH1 to DMH2 transfer button. It is highly encouraged to use this button to begin the claims section. If needed, the information can be changed manually in DMH2. And that ends the section for DMH1, and I will be turning it over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Emily. This is Alpama Amin again. Help function. When in the doubt, use the help function. We believe this is a useful tool. Within the menu function at the bottom, you can find the help icon. A PDF file with help contents will open in separate browser tab. You can also click on the help icon next to the schedule name. A PDF file specific to the schedule will open in separate browser tab. Thank you once again for participating in the CFR training webinar for 2023 calendar year consolidated fiscal report. In case you missed the beginning of the webinar, please take the time to fill out the post survey after you leave the event. It will help us make this training better. This webinar has been recorded and will be posted online shortly. An email will be sent out notifying you of the location. The Q&As will be carefully reviewed and answer will be posted online as soon as possible. This concludes CFR training session 1. Thank you.